I applaud you though for working a full-time job providing for your family.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah, that's very, admire that. So very much so, because you know, that's a hard thing.
Definitely, and a lot of comics struggle, and I try to help out a couple comics here, give them rides here, give them
Hmm.
a plate of food if they need, like pay them for their shows, obviously, and
Right.
making sure, if they come out to my shows, at least they get paid or something in return, maybe a couple beers or stuff like that. But I understand that's a struggle and that's never going to end, but it's always going to be there, and you never, and I think the harder the grind, the better the comedian you become.
Yeah. Well, that's what anything, the harder you do grind, the harder you do push. And the consistency is so important.
For sure.
The
And
consistency.
and I just got picked up by a tour. So I'm also on tour throughout Texas here. And
Oh,
so I'm
cool.
I'm touring with a couple comedians, and Valente from Rodriguez, also from the George Lopez show, is
Uh-huh.
he lives in LA and he comes down here to Texas to do some shows. And so I'm part of his group. It's called Way Funny,
Oh.
spelled with a Guey. And it's a group of us comedians that are kind of nomads, go out throughout Texas, and we tour throughout Texas.
Where's your favorite spot to visit in Texas, like when you tour?
You know what? It's so many places I love going to. I really enjoy Dallas. I like Dallas.
Hmm.
Just because I don't know, I hate the traffic, but I kind of like the culture, the vibe. People are very welcoming, and there's a lot of Hispanics there. And I think I like Dallas the most. Houston's up there too. And but I think the best, it's always the towns in between those big cities
Uh-huh.
that people are really like, they can't afford to go to a comedy club, so you take it to them. Oh, they have the most
Oh,
blessed
really? They
crowd. Oh yeah.
appreciate it.
Oh, they
Yeah.
appreciate it much more. So I like the smaller towns within the bigger cities.
Oh, I see. I could see that because here I am in New York, and every night there is something or someone performing, and I do have that luxury. And I think about because eventually I will retire somewhere, and I'm not gonna, you can't retire in New York. Like, you just can't. You can't retire in New York. But one day I'm gonna retire, but then I'm like, well, what would I do for entertainment?
Right.
And it would be boring, and
Right.
I own a home in Tampa, for instance, and they have like a couple clubs, and I've looked at, like, just curious, like, and I think I would just it would I'm kind of spoiled here that I have that like luxury on any time. And then when I lived in LA, I used to love going to the comedy store, but I could see where, like, once in a while when something comes, people just running out and
For
enjoying.
sure.
Yeah, and
For sure.
appreciating it more. Yeah.
Definitely. So I
Yeah.
kind of tend to target those little towns and try to build my following throughout there versus getting the bigger cities.
Right. Yeah, that's smart. That's smart. I have the book right here by Kevin Hart. It's called I Can't Make This Up. And I think that's I he probably didn't even write it. I bet you he didn't even write it. Okay.
Probably not.
But it's a good book because, and if you click on my link in my bio, by the way, and you go to my Amazon store, you can purchase it right there at Marcela Sobella. But anyway, it's a very good book because it does talk about, like, how he built his fan base, how he went to city. And it wasn't I think in it, you know, he talks about, like, how he built it up by going from city to city, and he did like a Facebook group, and he connected with each people, and then every time he went back to there, the people just like enjoyed seeing him again.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's the
Yeah.
old school method. I learned that from another LA comic. That's a very well known thing to do, is just kind of
Oh,
build your
okay. I'm over here thinking it was like unique.
No, yeah, it's been done. I have some Facebook groups out there that I've used, but mostly, yeah, I DM a lot of people. I end up just hitting up, people that I personally know, and just, if
Yeah.
they're really good friends of mine, they'll share it, or like, hey, go check this out, and so that kind of word of mouth, I try to do it
Oh,
like
okay.
that. So yeah, that's kind of like, I try doing it that way versus a group. because it's more intimate, more personal, and then um I just gotta have time dedicated to actually like message everybody and like figure out
Right, right, right.
like where everybody's at. But usually I'll for everybody from that city that I know I'll message.
Oh, that's good. That's
Yeah.
smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
good.
it's like just even random people like I haven't talked to in years, like, hey, hope everything's okay, and I hope everything's blessed in your life. By the way, here's a comedy show. I'm gonna be in town.
Yeah, you got to market it some way. Or yeah, I'm usually the other one DMing the comics, trying to get them on,
Yeah.
and it's hard. Like I'm trying to get like that's how I ended up just doing Latinos because I was like hitting up different comics, and the only people that would answer back as other Latinos. And then I was like, oh, well, this is how this podcast is going to go now. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is,
Sometimes it works out that way.
sometimes it works. And I've never, like, that method works for me. Like, because I have a big social media presence, but that's how I've been getting people on is I've just been DMing them, like
Yeah.
different comics or different people. Or sometimes I will go to their show because sometimes they don't answer their DM if they're big. I will go and I will reach out. But then like sometimes like then I've seen them before and I'm like, no, you can't come on. like I'm,
Yeah.
I'm like, no, okay, we're gonna pass on this person. They're
Yeah.
not funny. Yeah, I have to see some. Well, I have to see something. If I don't, if like see something, and then I'll like want to have them on some.
Right. Right.
Yeah, something has to catch my eye. And if it isn't, because I remember one time I went in Brooklyn, it's weird in Brooklyn. I went to a comedy show and I said, yo, I'm this is nobody's coming on this.
Wow. Yeah.
It's a small little, like, it was probably the smallest show I ever went to. And I was like, oh, okay. I found somebody, and they weren't Latino, by the way. So, but I was trying to give other comics a chance in all fairness, but I was like, no,
Yeah.
like I was like, I need to work, and I didn't, but I'm not going to go up to a comic. Has that ever happened to you? A fan gone up to you and like tried critiquing you?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Right after
Really?
I said like, oh, you should try this in your joke, or oh, I think this would be funny if you said it this way, or did you think about this? And I'm like, oh yeah, and I just
I'm like, that's rude. I just won't go to another. I'll just be like, pass on them if I don't.
yeah.
I treat it like,
Unless I have well, I specifically have comics that will come up to me and ask them to critique their set. And
mm.
that to me is also a kind of like um rite of passage, I guess. I don't know, like because to
Do you
me,
feel
like,
honored when they do that?
yeah, I do because I don't I've always kind of seen myself bombing the same as them, but when they
Right.
come up to me and they're like, "Hey, man, that really means a lot to me coming from you," and I'm like, "Wow, really? That's such."
Wow.
So like makes me feel really good, and that keeps me going because like I know, and I'm like I know there's a lot of times where like some comics don't really like to be critiqued. So,
Right.
but and I have done that in the past, but not knowingly doing that, and just I would go up to comics and I'd be like, "Hey, it would be funny if you did this," and then I kind of noticed that like, "Hey, man." Another comic that's older than me kind of pulled me to the side and say, "Hey, man, maybe you shouldn't do that. You should always just kind of wait till they come up and ask you versus you telling
Mm.
them." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh, that's great." And then sure enough, I started doing more of my punchlines, and people come up to me and like, "Hey, how do you write? What do you do to write?" And then I started, just sharing them my ideas and how I write, my process, my thought process. And then after a while, they're like, "Hey, man, can you come check out my show? I mean, can you come check out my set and let me
Mhm.
know what you think?" And I was like, "Okay, cool." And then so after the set, I'll be like, "It's good, but put this one in the front. Put this joke here. Take that one out. It's too lengthy." And I'll just like do it like a red editor, and that's just how my brain thinks. And then I'm like, "Okay, try it." And then sure enough, the next time the comic will try it, they're like, "It worked. That line worked." And I'm like, "See, like." Like I'm just trying to tell you what I think is funny. It's not necessarily uh critiquing on you particularly. It's just maybe how you say certain things. I'm
Mhm.
not saying that you're not funny, or maybe if you put an inflection in your voice, or maybe
Right.
if you do something to enhance the joke, to make it more appealing to me, as like, or appealing to somebody who I think would enjoy their comedy set. And knowing that person too, they have the trust in me to give them that type of critique, and they use my my
Advice.
advice. Yeah,
Yeah.
advice. So
Now,
it's very rewarding. It's very rewarding. That's very flattering too.
yeah.